Right, week 6 reactions. I don't think any intro needed anymore. Same format as the prior week, so I'll just pass it to Sai. You said you got some good ones, so
Yeah,
uh, start us off.
thanks. I'm gonna jump right into it. So first and foremost, I feel like we really haven't talked about Evans Commanders very much, and we'll get to that a little bit more. But here's my prompt for the week for you guys based off that game. Jaden ends up, after last year, the Hail Mary to beat the Bears in their house. They end up losing to the Bears this year on a Caleb Williams, game winning. Well, I guess technically game winning drive after the Jaden Daniels fumble. Here's my question though: what do you guys think of the current draft class? Because we talked about those two playing each other, but meanwhile, while all that's going on, Drake May is starting to pop off, and I don't know if you guys have noticed what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, or just the season in general. So I'm starting to wonder what you guys think of like long term outlook. I recognize Jaden obviously has a lead coming into this year with the NFC, championship run that he had last year. I know Caleb. I'm sure everyone will think is more towards the bottom of that tier because the other two have shown out a little bit more. But I want to know how you guys are feeling after like early in this season, what we're thinking in terms of like long term outlook. Do you guys think Drake May has potential to potentially be the best one out of the three? How are we feeling about the three after this weekend? I know this is going to be a hot take for Evan, but I look forward to this.
Zach, do you want to go first as the unbiased third
No,
party?
all you.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think like Jaden has put from last year, he's just put so much like gap between them. Also, not just from an individual performance standpoint, but like he led his team to an NFC Championship game, which like no rookie's really ever done, and almost to a Super Bowl. So I think Drake May though is like kind of on that level of like could be an MVP one day. I mean, as of right now, he's in the MVP conversation. So I love Drake May, what I'm seeing from him. I think he's a future MVP candidate, as is Jaden. So I think those are your top tier. Obviously, right now I still have Jaden above Drake, but I love them both. I don't think Caleb is anywhere close to them. Like, I know that all the Bears fans and they should be excited for winning that game and they like deserve to be happy about it. I'm glad they're happy with their choice, but like Caleb played terrible in that game, and he still looks awful to me. I mean, he's horribly inaccurate. Like, he still struggles managing things at the line of scrimmage. Like, he still got outplayed by Jaden by a significant margin in that game. So I still haven't seen what I need to see from him to like put him on the same level as Drake and Jaden. And then Bo Nix, I think, just like lower ceiling, and he's not playing particularly well this year. So I guess I would take Caleb over him just from an upside perspective. Michael Penix, I'm not a big fan of. I think he's below all of them. And then JJ McCarthy is the wild card, of course. I still love JJ, and I still think JJ is going to be third in this draft class. But I realize that's kind of a hot take because it didn't look so good to start the year. So that's my order.
Zach, you want to go? I got a take after you. So
I'm just gonna keep it light. I think Jaden is the king, and there's no close competition around him. Si, what's your take?
okay, here's my take. I think Jaden is definitely the best right now. And this has nothing to do with talent or performance or ability to win because I believe Jaden is elite in all of those things. And I love Jaden. And I hope I'm actually wrong about this because I do want him to be, uber successful. He's just fun to watch and he's right around the corner for me. So I love that. But I actually think if I was starting a franchise today, I would take Drake May over Jaden Daniels. And here's why. And I know it's a hot take, but I would. And here's why. Every single time I watch Jaden play football right now, I don't like to be the guy who's like, oh, injuries might happen. But every single time this guy takes a hit, I'm holding my breath because it's like he's diving into frays. He's getting hit at the legs. He's like doing like backflips. I know I'm exaggerating, but it feels like he's so slim and slender and feels so like, it almost feels like a shorter Wemby playing out there. And then he's taking these massive hits. And I don't think he's quite figured out. And maybe I'm sure he'll learn this as he continues to sustain more injuries. Luckily, he hasn't had anything long term. But I'm terrified of what that's going to mean. I have no concerns about his ability to be great. Meanwhile, Drake is a bigger, thicker, stronger type guy. Not quite as fast as Jaden, but he can run. He kind of gives me, and I know it's corny to say it, and I know a lot of people have already said it, he really does give me pseudo Josh Allen vibes in terms of his ceiling. And for me, the durability of that, like we've seen what Josh has been able to do over his career, where he's basically he's like an Iron Man. He plays every game, and he's kind of learned how to handle his body and stuff. And I think Drake is figuring that out arguably just as quick as him. I mean, his second year is arguably better than Josh Allen's second year. And I'm not saying his peak will be as good, but I kind of already am seeing some of those performances from what he's doing with. And the last thing I'll say about Drake is Stephon Diggs is having like a career, like, he's coming back and playing almost like he did, but he's not what he was in his prime. The fact that Drake May is doing it with Kayshon Boutte, Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, like I'm not trying to throw shade at any of those guys, but it's almost like Josh Allen, where he's been able to make it work with whoever he has around him at a very young age, and that gets me really hype about his potential. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he achieves. And I truly believe Drake could be that next guy for New England that they have for the next 15 years and could be an Iron Man. So that's my take. I'm not even talking about the other guys because I do agree that after those two, there's a massive teardrop. I don't know if I'm convinced JJ will be third. I actually don't think. I'm not saying I think Caleb is playing to the level of the other two. I don't think he's been as terrible as Evan's making him out to be, especially in the last 3 weeks that I've watched him play. Jaden did outplay him in this game, but Caleb is starting to learn a little bit more about playing on script, even though sometimes he does still make those wild decisions to roll out. He's been better at staying in the pocket and actually making some of those throws. And I think Ben Johnson is slowly getting him to turn around a little bit. So I'm not out on him yet. So I still think Caleb is third for me currently.
He was graded worst.
I love it.
He was graded worst player on the field. Fun fact on Monday Night Football's game on that side of the ball. Commanders defense versus Bears offense. Worst player on the field according to PFF was Caleb. This isn't as much for size as it is all the Bears people on the internet, but just want to let them know that.
It's fair.
But they won the game, so shout out though. Anyways, Zach, you got a take?
Yeah, I got a take. All right, here's my take. Chuba Hubbard is not good. Chuba Hubbard is not good. Let's look at the data. Rico Dowdle has come in and taken this Carolina running back position by storm. He had 209 yards. He was averaging like 9 yards a carry, a couple touchdowns against the Fins. And then he comes back this past week. He has 180-something yards, 6.1 a carry, another couple tutties. And it's just like, why has there been this acquiescence over Chuba Hubbard and, oh yeah, he's like a top 12 running back, but the Panthers aren't very good, so Chuba, he can only get so much traction going on the ground. You stick a real running back there with the durability of a Rico Dowdle, the speed, and just the physical tenacity and like he's got like a swagger. Like you could tell how much he wanted to beat his old team that had cut him and the Dallas Cowboys. I just think that Chuba Hubbard is overrated, and he's been overrated for years under this team, under the demise or the fake storyline of, oh yeah, well the Carolina Panthers aren't good, so therefore Chuba Hubbard isn't good. Chuba just lost his starting job, and he's not going to get it back in Carolina. That is my take.
Okay, I will say this, Evan, I'm just going to be quick about this. You're giving love to my Gamecock, so I'm not going to complain. Shout out Rico Dowdle. But one thing I will say is this has less to do with Chuba Hubbard not being good for me. And I'm not saying Rico Dowdle is probably better at this point. I won't dispute that. But it has more to do with the Cowboys somehow managing to have Rico Dowdle and not turning him into something good when they had a whole season to do it. And then him coming to Carolina, and obviously he's had two very good matchups for his ability to go put up the numbers that he's doing, but it's still absurd what he's doing. So this is actually more a knock on the Cowboys to me than it is the Panthers' handling of Hubbard versus Dowdle, because they'll figure that out. But shout out my Gamecock, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of disagree with both of you to a degree. I mean, the main point here is that, Zach, you kind of sank your argument by listing who he played. I mean, Miami's run defense is like the worst run defense we've seen in like a decade in football. Quinshon Judkins might run for 500 yards against them this week if the Browns choose to give him the ball. And the Cowboys' defense is horrendous as well. And Chuba, like, no one's acting like Chuba's some elite back. Like, he's a solid running back. And all that, but I'm also not going to pick on the Cowboys too much for letting him go. I think this is just a case of Rico had an amazing offseason. He looks so much better. He looks so much more explosive and stronger this year than he did last year. And he got his opportunity to shine, and he's putting some good film out there. So I do appreciate that he's getting the love because he had two just insane games against horrendous defenses. But I think they're both going to be involved moving forward. And long term, Chuba's the one that's there. Like Rico is going to go play somewhere else and like hopefully have a good career. But Chuba's the one that has the extension, and they got young guys in the room. So Chuba's kind of the guy they need to keep involved.
Ev, I would agree with you if Rico Dowdle came in there and rushed for like 100 yards in back-to-back games. The guy rushed for he had over 200 yards in back-to-back games, all-purpose yards. That is objectively insane. I don't even remember the last time someone has done that. I don't even remember the last time Christian McCaffrey has done that. That's how insane it is what he did. So that's why even if the defenses are bad that he plays against, Zach has a point about this isn't even just because he's a Gamecock. I think if any Joe Schmo, if I didn't know his name and he puts up over 200 all-purpose yards in back-to-back weeks, that's Bijan numbers, bro, which leans into another take that I have, so I'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. That's where I look at it.
I'm not saying he does look better than Chuba right now, but to say Chuba is bad, Chuba would have run for over 100 yards if he was the only back there getting 25 touches. He would have done that on those defenses too. He maybe wouldn't run 200 to size point, but that doesn't mean Chuba's bad. He's a fine back. I think they're both gonna be successful in that offense.
I don't think Chuba starts on any other team.
Okay, I disagree with that.
What other team would he start in?
We'd have to kind of I'm putting myself on the spot. I think Arizona, he'd have a real good shot to give it a run for their money. I know
not over James Conner.
I think over James Conner potentially. James Conner's good, but Chuba, the way Chuba finished out the year last year was very impressive. Zach, he actually not even finished out. Everyone thought that the job was Jonathan Brooks when he got back, and there's a reason Jonathan Brooks, even when he didn't get that opportunity. Chuba was a consistently solid running back.
It's because Jonathan Brooks sucks.
No, but it wasn't. But even putting Jonathan Brooks aside, maybe you're right about that. He consistently rushed for solid yardage. His yards per carry were really good last year on a bad Panthers team. So I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to argue he's better than Dowdle, but I think to say he wouldn't play on one of 32 teams, I'd have to think. You put me on the spot, but if you gave me a little time to think about it, I'm sure I could come up with quite a few that he'd be able to play on.
All right, we spent too much time talking about the Panthers.
Too much Chuba talk.
He would not start over Chase Brown, by the way. Don't even. That's
Brown's
terrible take.
awful.
Chase Brown's good.
I flipped his take, bro.
He looks. Chase Brown. He's running for 2 yards a carry right now. I get the Bengals have a bad offense, but in reality, Chuba is a guy that you have in there with another guy. He's part of a committee. He's probably not. He's never a standalone bell cow back. I'll agree with you there, but my take. This isn't. I don't think some kind of hot take. It's going around a lot right now. Baker Mayfield's going to win the MVP here in 2025, 2026, and it's going to be absolutely glorious. He's just putting a team on his back right now. Obviously, Chris Godwin's pretty much been out all year. Now Mike Evans has been out for most of the year. Now he's going to be down Emeka Egbuka. Look at the guys he's thrown to. Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson, the ghost of Sterling Shepard, and he just keeps winning with the Tampa Bay Bucks being arguably the best team in football, not just through the air, with his legs. Baker Mayfield is awesome, and him winning the MVP this year is going to be one of the best storylines that we've seen in the NFL in a long time, and I think the NFL is going to start pushing that narrative because they would have pushed the Joe Burrow narrative, but he got hurt. So shout out Baker Mayfield, man. That's my dog.
Zach, any comments on that before I go?
No, I love the take. I love the ghost of Sterling Shepard as well. Great way to add that in.
I think Baker Mayfield definitely deserves it, especially if the season ended today. And I'm not just saying this as a homer pick because I actually do want Baker to win. It would make me really happy, specifically for the storyline thing. I think after last weekend, though, and this will play into one of my other takes as well, after last weekend and the fact that his number one receiver is returning, I actually think if I had to put my money on someone right now, it would be Patrick Mahomes. I genuinely believe the rest of the season, he's back to being the guy who's throwing over 300 yards. He's rushing for touchdowns. The numbers he's putting up is crazy. And if they have the second half of the season that I think they will, I think he could very much catch up with Baker. Assuming the Bucs actually lose some games. Maybe they won't. I don't know.
He's, I think, number one in the odds now.
Mahomes is, yeah.
Zach, do you have any MVP chatter here?
No.
Do you have a ladder?
No, quite the opposite, actually. So my hot take is that I think Mike McDaniels is going to get fired after next week when they lose to the Browns. So Miami's going to go up to play Cleveland. It's always tough going up to the dog bound, and Mike McDaniels, who is known for being an offensive juggernaut, his offense has been very stale, stagnant. His players don't want to play for him. His locker room, like they can't even rally around him. They've had multiple players only meetings. It's just not good. Speaking of which, they're 1-5. They're losing the close games now. Like they blew a 17-0 lead against the Panthers. They lost a close one last week. Now they got to go up to Cleveland, another 1-5 team. I think the Dolphins are going to lose that game. I think Mike McDaniels is going to get fired. He's going to get canned before the start of week. I guess that would be week 9. So that's my take. What are your thoughts on that?
No thoughts. I just hope he gets an opportunity as an OC somewhere else because I think he could do great as an OC for another team, even if he wasn't the best head coach. But I do have, after Evan goes, I have a piggybacking something off that.
No, go for it. I was just gonna say I think that's very plausible. If you lose to the Browns and are 1-6, that seems like a good time to do it. And he wouldn't even be the first. Brian Callahan, pretty shocking firing there from the Titans. But go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's funny you said Mike McDaniel because I'm gonna focus on a different Mike, which is Mike McDonald. And I think Mike McDonald is the best defensive head coach in football. And I think he got way too slept on for what he contributed to the Ravens defense. If you see what's happened with the Ravens defense since he's left, they have not been nearly as good as they were a couple of years ago when they were easily the best defense in football. Well, now he's in Seattle, and he is turning that Seattle's defense into a menace. Held the Jacksonville Jaguars that Evan is writing love letters to every week to 12 points, and made Trevor Lawrence, who does Trevor Lawrence things that look not great. I mean, he had some yards, but they didn't end up winning. Nothing from ETN, and then they ended up winning that game. But also, obviously, the reason I make that take also is because he knows his job and does it amazingly, which is being a leader of men and coaching the defense and letting his offense do what they need to do to succeed. And obviously, Sam Darnold, Jack Smith, and Jigba have been incredible. We've touched on that. But the way he is scheming his defense with the rush with stacking one side on the rush and having one guy pass rush independently on the other side is this beautiful thing that I've been watching. Dan Orlovsky was doing that, so shout out to him. I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Love the Seahawks. Sam Darnold and JSN, man. What a combo that is. Who's next?
Have you? You got one?
Yeah, I've got one. So I think DJ Moore is going to be one of the most interesting trade candidates as we start to look at this deadline. When you think about the Bears, now the Bears are in contention right now after that win on Monday Night Football that we talked about. But Luther Burden is starting to make an impact on this offense, and we know how talented he is, and he can easily take over the DJ Moore role. And then you obviously have Rome Odunze as your alpha number one. And Olamide Zaccheaus, don't sleep on him. He was great for the Commanders last year. He's a solid little slot gadgety type. So I think the Bears can afford to trade DJ Moore, who they hardly used yet this year. I know he got hurt on Monday, but hopefully he's okay. And I think he could be a really impactful acquisition to a team trying to beef up their wide receiver room at the deadline. And the Bears could still compete, but I think it'd be more of a future move with the Bears. I think probably on the outside looking into the playoff picture with the depth of the NFC. But I think DJ Moore could really help a team down the stretch if he gets traded.
How does that actually work, though? Because they're going to have to take so much of that dead cap. They just paid him this monstrous contract. So, I mean, how does that deal actually get made? I mean, surely no one's going to actually take the money on his contract. Chicago's going to have to eat that.
Yeah, I can't speak to the logistics on that one, but
I personally don't think that they're going to do it just because I think you always want that extra receiver depth. I would rather have Burden as my number 3 currently than have him as my number 2. And I would rather have DJ Moore as a veteran presence if they really do want to compete for the playoffs, because when you're playing zones and stuff, those veteran receivers are the ones who are great at beating the zone. So I can't just fully rely on 2 young receivers if I really do want to compete for the playoffs. Now, whether we think they're actually going to be a good playoff team or not is a different story, and I'm not saying they will be, but I think Ben Johnson believes they can be, and so I don't think he's going to trade him just because I don't think they're going to get enough. Why? If I'm trading DJ Moore, if I'm not more likely than not with the contract situation, you're not getting better than what, a 5th, 6th round pick maybe, and I'm not trading him for that. I have nothing
more
to.
Than that, but yeah,
I don't know though. Not after this year, I don't think. But I don't know. T-Sean, you got to take Zach?
Chiefs are back. Chiefs are back. It's not really a take. It's just like an admit. It's like I'm waving the white flag of surrender. They're looking really, really good. I'm back on the Chiefs, and I will be for a while.
Zach, I wish I could give you a hug, bro. This is like this
You
is
say
so
that every
beautiful.
time I say that.
Like when you picked them over the Lions last week, I almost like cried, like tears of joy. And now it's just like this affirmation that you're giving me every week, and you don't know how like it's been tough, man. I've been willing to be on that island on my own because I typically win when I pick the Chiefs. But like to have someone who has been so against that narrative come around and my best friend, man, it means the world to me. So thank you, Zach, for coming to that realization because I do agree with you. The Chiefs are back, and they're only going to get better. That defense is
Of
getting better.
course.
That wide receiving core is getting better. They only added Worthy, and all of a sudden became good. Their run game hasn't even been good, and they're still doing whatever they want with the football. And this is against back-to-back good defenses. Like they might have lost to the Jags, but their offense was still humming. If Mahomes didn't throw an uncharacteristic 99-yard pick six, we're looking at almost like a 40-point game from them. And then against the Lions, they beat them by multiple scores. And this is all before they get their best wide receiver back. It's actually like they have to stay healthy, but this is a really good thing that you brought this up because it loops right into my other take. People, man, at what point are we going to stop overrating the Buffalo Bills? I'm so tired of this. Every single year, I made this take, I think, like 3, 4, 5 years ago when we were talking about it. Every single year, it's because we love Josh Allen, and I get why we love Josh Allen. He's probably going to go down as an all-time great. But every single year, we watched him be good for like the early part of the season, and everyone's like, it's the Bills' year. They're going to go win a championship. Josh Allen's going to beat Patrick Mahomes. He's going to win another MVP, so on and so forth. And all the Bills go on to do is continue to disappoint. And even if they're a good regular season team, they lose in the playoffs. This year, they start off, and people just don't pay attention to the wins they have and act like beating the Ravens was this incredible result. Every team has beaten the Ravens except for one. And now the Bills have gone back-to-back weeks. Shout out to the Falcons. They actually played a very good game. But on multiple occasions, you guys basically tried to give the game away to them, and they weren't able to take it. And the week prior, they got beat by the Patriots in their own division. Should we be having conversations about, are the Bills guaranteed to win this division at this point? I mean, the Patriots are looking pretty good, and I would argue the Patriots' defense is better. So can we just start acknowledging the fact that we can't just blindly be giving the Bills credit every single year? They need to prove something to us, y'all. I'm getting tired of this nonsense. And
I love that take.
feel bad, but yeah.
I love that take. That's a good take. I'm not going to argue that. Ev, I think I'm jumping back on the Chiefs bandwagon and getting rid of the Bills. I mean, the Bills look awful.
I think it's an overreaction to one game. Like we can't expect in the NFL for like what we expect to happen on paper to happen in reality every single time out. And like that's a tough spot for the Bills, and you could really see it come to fruition, them being without their top pass catchers. Kincaid, Palmer gets hurt in the game. Now they don't have a very explosive group to begin with. And the Falcons are at home coming off a bye, huge game for them. So, I mean, the Bills have problems they need to fix. Don't get me wrong, but I have confidence. And the Patriots look great. So I do think there's an interesting conversation for the division. But, they basically get to the Patrick Mahomes game every year. And yes, they lose. We get it. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But, I mean, I still believe that the Bills will be, right in the mix at the end of this, despite a couple
I just want to say this. They gave up 300 yards of offense in the first half of the game against Falcons with the Michael Penix quarterback that you yourself, Evan, said that you don't trust at all. And that's not me going at you, Evan. This is me talking about the media in general. There's just something about Buffalo being the sweetheart. It's almost like Steph Curry in basketball, although Steph has actually won championships and will probably go down as the top 10 player of all time. Just, again, not a knock at Josh Allen, but let's just say what it is. We like Buffalo Bills fans. We love the Bills Mafia. We love the broken tables. We love Josh Allen. We love Haley Steinfeld. And as a result of all that, we give them more grace than we give other players when they lose. When Lamar Jackson loses, everyone talks about how not clutch Lamar Jackson is when the playoff comes around. When Patrick Mahomes, who's gone to AFC Championship after AFC Championship and Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, loses in the Super Bowl, and then loses a game at the beginning of the year, he gets a boatload of crap. When players in the NFC lose, they get boatloads of crap. But for whatever reason, the Bills are weirdly protected. This is my feeling. Maybe I just feel that way, but in the media, I just feel like there's a sweetheart element going into it. And you're going to get a good clip out of the Zach, and I'll probably get roasted by Buffalo fans. And I feel bad about that because I like Buffalo fans. But I'm just calling a spade at this point, and we will see if they finally go to the playoffs and make it to a Super Bowl, then I will shut up. But until they come on, what are we talking about here?
So, but is this a playoffs take or a regular season take?
No, this is an everything.
One of my biggest takes about everything right now is it's like
they've been riding the coattails. They've been riding the coattails of the regular season performances for years, is my argument, right? Like up until this year, they managed to have one of the better records in the AFC, make the playoffs, right? And then like you said, ad nauseum, we've talked about them not being able to beat Patrick Mahomes and go to a Super Bowl. That's fine. But this year, we come into the year and like 3 games in, everyone's like, Bills best team in football, even though they had one good win against the Ravens. Then we saw what the Ravens were this year, who have only won 1 game so far. And people were talking about the Bills like they're the class of the AFC after they beat the Ravens in a close game and then ended up having a close game to the Spencer Rattler Saints. And then now back-to-back weeks of lost games. Like you would think that after you lost the Patriots in your division, you'd go on the road and make a statement against the Falcons. And you did not. And anyway, it's just me trying to be a counter argument to the Bills, who I think just get a lot more. Like I said, they're protected a bit more than some of these other teams, and people give them a little bit more. I don't know what the word is, but they give them a little bit more like room for growth than I think other teams. But it is what it is. The other thing I will say coming off that game is, Zach, I will never in my life ever be okay with you disrespecting Bijan Robinson again. And I know you now understand that. So let's be clear, that was the right draft pick, and they would do that 10 times over if you see what he's doing now.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's just such a different player than Jahmyr Gibbs that I just find myself like, I've always been a big Jahmyr Gibbs fan ever since his Bama days. I just admittedly never saw Bijan as much in Texas. Because I don't take Texas Longhorn football players very seriously. I think they kind of flame out in the NFL. So I just have always been a big Jahmyr guy. But Bijan, I mean, he is carrying this team. That 81-yard scamper was unbelievable. Bijan is so good, he gets a specific camera view of his miraculous runs that no other running back gets that privilege. So I think, Saad, you rest your case there. Ev, you got anything?
No, yeah, I mean he's arguably the best player in the NFL right now. Just when you get the ball in his hands. So
okay, so then it's my turn then, and I'm gonna flame Evan here. So last week or a couple weeks ago, we talked about who is the 6th best wide receiver in the NFL. I mentioned George Pickens, and Evan mentioned Garrett Wilson, and what a disgrace Garrett Wilson has been this year, this season. And this is not just Garrett Wilson, it's the Jets. Garrett Wilson the last 3 weeks doesn't even have the same amount of yards that George Pickens got last week against J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn's like a top 10 corner. George Pickens absolutely destroyed him, murked him up and down the field. He even, not only did he score a touchdown, he had 9 receptions for 170 yards. He had the touchdown, but he also managed the crash out as entertainment for the fans. George Pickens is such a better football player than Garrett Wilson, and there is just no way to convince me. George Pickens is a better route runner. George Pickens is a better jump ball connoisseur. George Pickens people have previously labeled him like he's a 3-route guy. No, that's DK Metcalf. George Pickens is a very versatile receiver. He's got better hands than Garrett Wilson. I mean, what does Garrett Wilson actually do that can make him credibly in the top 6 range? George Pickens, I feel like last week's performance solidified him as number 6, and I just wanted to get Evan's thoughts on the matter.
Hey, Evan, before I go, can I ask a quick question to Zach, and I'm going to let you fully take over after that. Zach, is Jake Ferguson the best tight end in football?
Nope. He's top 10 now.
Just go ahead. That's all I needed to say.
I mean, I don't know why I'm getting painted as some kind of George Pickens hater. I love George Pickens.
I like George Pickens too.
But you love Garrett Wilson more. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think. I mean, my 2 questions to you are do you think that Garrett Wilson, who by the way, going into that game he's 12th in receiving yards in the NFL right now, and he had none last week because he got hurt. And so I'm assuming going into that game, he was top 10 easily, if not probably top 8. I don't remember. Do you know who his quarterback is?
Yeah, but he has drops. He has big-time drops this year. He's had 2 drops on 4
What are you talking about?
Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is 2 drops on 4th down conversion plays that lose them the game.
Have you seen those throws that are being made to him? They're absolutely.
They're right in his hands. They hit him right in the hands.
One of those was a literal duck. It was like one of those kicks that people are dropping on the thing. Garrett Wilson has some of the most sure hands in football. Evan made a really good point. Coming into last week, Garrett Wilson was top 10 in football in receiving yards, and I believe he scored a touchdown every single week. Actually, maybe he scored a touchdown every single week. I don't actually think there was a week where he didn't. And we're talking about a team that's scoring 15 points a game? To be scoring a touchdown almost every single week on a team that's scoring not even 2 touchdowns a game is crazy, bro. The Jets are not good. We talked about this last week. Wilson has had arguably the worst quarterback play out of any receiver in football for his entire career. I can't think of anyone else who's had it worse than him. And he still managed to put up numbers and be there for his team. And what I love about Garrett Wilson more than anyone else is, and this is why I think he'd flourish is if he got a good quarterback, is he never complains. He could easily be out there being
He always complains. He went up to his head coach last week and he was cussing him out. That's the most unprofessional. He did that to Aaron Rodgers last year. I don't even think he's a good teammate.
No, go yell at Aaron Rodgers and your coach. Aaron Rodgers is the most selfish man in football now, and I love him as a player. And go yell at your coach if they can't figure out what they're doing. But what I like about him is he doesn't go complain to the media. He shows up week in and week out and plays. It's not like George Pickens just quitting on plays halfway through a play or deciding not to block or decide the number of iterations that we've had with Pickens. Please do not compare their character. Wilson is one of the most.
I'm not comparing their character.
No, I'm just talking about in a world where there's
Garrett Wilson is a much better character than I see what you're saying.
I'm saying
because I'm murking on your Garrett Wilson.
If we're relying
George
on
Pickens is even worse.
If we're relying on a true number one, I believe with a guy like Dak Prescott, I would love to see Garrett Wilson's numbers. And they're very different receivers. I think Pickens, I would agree with you, is more explosive. But as a guy who I can rely on to get me 10 receptions a game and convert big plays, with the right quarterback, I would take Wilson. I still stand by that.
He's wide.
I just don't understand that. I don't.
If you watch his portion of the game, he's wide open the entire game, and Justin Fields just cannot get him the ball. Now I will say he was getting guarded by some practice squad level scrub in that game named Patrick Surtain. So fair point on the cornerbacks, but a little tongue in cheek. But yeah, not exactly an easy CB1 matchup. But yeah, I mean. I'm not going to get into a whole thing. I just think.
You mentioned he's top 10 in receiving yards, right? George Pickens has 200 yards more than Garrett Wilson this year.
It's Dak Prescott versus Justin Fields in an offense where they throw it 50 times a game, where the Jets run it 50 times a game. Garrett Wilson
they're passing because they're down. You could make an argument that they throw more because they have to get it.
They still don't throw more than the Cowboys. They do get
they don't throw nearly as much as the Cowboys because the Cowboys also have the worst defense in football. So Dak Prescott has to throw the ball. Last week, Dak Prescott had an awesome game against the Panthers. And you want to know why they lost? Because he scored 27 points and they couldn't hold the Panthers under 30. It's so insane how bad they are. And Dak is chucking it the whole game. The other crazy part is the reason I brought up Jake Ferguson earlier is I'm not saying he's bad. He's obviously a good tight end, especially a receiving tight end. But look at the numbers Jake Ferguson is putting up right now as a tight end. Dak Prescott is, at least for this year, the truth in terms of being able to throw the football, bro. You could give him anybody and they would look good. That's how good he's playing. That's just that's the other part of it.
And if you want numbers, look at career numbers. I'm sure Garrett's career numbers are way better than Pickens. I don't have them in front of me.
They are.
That's because George Pickens has been looked at as a wide receiver too. I think what everyone is realizing waking up to is he's a number one receiver. He's a number one receiver, and he's putting up better stats right now through this season than CD ever has as a Cowboy.
Let's see
what happens when CD comes back. Let's see what happens when CD comes back on Sunday.
Whoa, now you're bringing CD into this conversation?
I am. Dude, George Pickens is he's literally, we're 5 weeks through the year. So he's averaging, if he keeps this up, 1,700 yards and 19 touchdowns. That's where he's at the end of the season. I'm telling you, I think people are overlooking how good he is, even without CD, to take that number one corner away. He's abusing number one corners right here, right now.
Zach, you're projecting out George Pickens for the rest of the year. In 2023, when Dak's last full healthy season, CeeDee Lamb had 1,749 yards receiving on, what was it, 135 receptions and 12 touchdowns. He had 1,800 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns on over 130 receptions. CeeDee Lamb is the truth. I'm okay with the Garrett Wilson comparison, but let's not take 4 or 5 games of George Pickens playing on a good team and extrapolate that Travis is as good as CeeDee Lamb.
Like, yeah, I did not mean to
Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase too. That's crazy.
I feel like CeeD's catching strays right now. Yeah. I do apologize for that.
A lot of great players are catching strays for no reason.
Garrett Wilson is the most overrated wide receiver.
That's hard. Last week, Malik Neighbors was the most overrated wide receiver.
Exactly. And what has he done since then?
Torn his ACL. as Garrett hurt his knee too. So Zach is basically just trashing guys and then they hurt their knee the week after. So please do not talk bad about any of my fantasy wide receivers, Zach. Otherwise I'm screwed.
I was like, yeah, Malik Neighbors had 0 receptions for 0 yards. He got shut down last week.
Please do not say anything about Terry McLaurin on this podcast. I really need him back for the Commanders.
Evan, who you and I should be beefing with instead of Zach is the turf in New York. That's who we should be beefing. Now, Wilson got hurt. I know Wilson got hurt in London, but both those guys play in that terrible turf. So, yeah.
It was either Phil. I think it was Phil actually. Phil Smith, shout out friend of the program, that told me that narrative is bogus. So we might need him to come on and say.
I don't know. I mean,
the data doesn't.
I think the players themselves. I think the players themselves say they would want to be rid of the turf. Real quick though, I think that we should be moving on shortly, but I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the Giants showing last week. It feels like it's been a whole decade since we've watched that game, but that was this week. And can we give some love to Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, of course, even guys like Wan'Dale Robinson and them having a career game and making proving themselves early in their careers against an Eagles team. What are your thoughts on the Eagles' long-term outlook right now? There's a lot of, and also the Giants. Zach initially had them as his NFC Championship representatives, and now has cooled off that, and all of a sudden they're good. So Zach has a knack for this. But I don't know. I want to see what y'all's thoughts were on that. That was one thing I definitely want to talk about.
Yeah, no, shout out the Giants. Big coming out party for Jackson Dart. Eagles, I mean, this is the whole thing, like with the Bills. We need to talk about the Eagles in the same vein. Like, they have a lot they need to clean up. I think, obviously bad time to be saying that the Commanders can compete for the division after they lost to the Bears, but I think that division's in play with how the Eagles look right now. They have a lot they need to improve on the defensive side of the ball and certainly the offensive side of the ball when they can't run the ball with Saquon Barkley, and they need to get the receivers more involved. But it's also, again, it's week 6. I'm not going to overreact to, one tough divisional game on a Thursday night where the Giants came out and played their best game of the year. So I'll just give credit to the Giants, and we'll see where the Eagles go from here. Obviously, they have some work to do, but it's early. Plenty of football left to be played this year.
I'm gonna give my hot take, and this is as someone who is a Jalen Hurts fan, and I was also one of the biggest Saquon Barkley fans you've ever met. And on top of that, obviously, I think AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are absolute studs. Saying all that, I think the Eagles have a real problem, and maybe they can fix it, but I actually am starting to really cool on them to the point where I believe that they're gonna almost have a similar trajectory to what they had 2 years ago, in terms of how hard they fall off this year. At least, I'm not saying they won't make the playoffs. I full well believe they will. But so far, if you really think about it, even the games they've won have not been very impressive. And the ones now that they've lost have made me feel very sour on them, because it feels like they can put together one good half at a time, and then the other half, their offense just completely disappears. Saquon Barkley has not looked like Saquon Barkley this entire season. And the reason that I think we saw Jalen Hurts be so comfortable last year was because he knew he had a guy whose over-unders week to week was like 150 yards rushing, and that is not even somewhat surfaced this year. So I'm actually really concerned about the Eagles. I think that there's several teams in the NFC right now that I feel more confident in terms of winning playoff games and making the Super Bowl. And part of it is not trying to throw shade. Obviously, Sirianni's won a Super Bowl, and he's gotten enough crap from his fans and has proven them wrong. But I really don't think their coaching situation with their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator is great. And in order for them to make the turn they did last year, Sirianni had to give up his play calling abilities, and all of a sudden, I think Kellen Moore took over, and all of a sudden their offense played a lot better. Right now, he doesn't have the OC to do that for him, at least as presently constructed. Maybe they'll make some changes. I am actually really concerned about them. Like I don't know if they will figure it out this year, at least unless Saquon starts being the best running back in football again, which I don't know if it's going to happen.